You are totally under an obligation to watch Bluey. Sorry, but that's how it is.
I'm not taking advice from a cartoon dog.
Do you want to do a curry swap, or are you scared of a curry swap?
Curry swap! Woo!
I don't know how to cook a curry. Hello, Reformed Mythologist Nate Morganlock here with another episode of Behold the Comments. I am joined as ever by Eleanor of Lothlorien, who is not wearing a hat.
Why did you have to point it out?
Well, I thought it'd be funny because I always wear a hat, and Eleanor usually wears a hat, but today she's not wearing a hat. In non-hat related news, we are going to be going through the comments underneath previous released Reformed Mythologist videos. So if you've been leaving comments, who knows? Are we going to go through yours? Well, we are if your name is Pete Thorne, because you left a comment under One Bluey episode 5 Moments of Genius and said, you are totally under an obligation to watch Bluey. Sorry, but that's how it is. I kind of agree with that, even though that does completely go against the entire premise of this channel.
Most Bluey episodes are only 7 minutes long, so it's not really much of an obligation to have to watch one.
It's not a heavy burden, but apparently it is a burden nonetheless. Pete Thorne says that. Any other comments jump out at you from those?
Yeah, so we had several people commenting, telling us their favourite episodes or an episode that we might find interesting. We had 2 people talk about Flat Pack, Josh Lama and Howard JM. You went away and watched all of the Bluey episodes that people brought up, didn't you?
I watched the recommended ones because I realised I hadn't seen many of them. I did particularly on Howard JM's comment, Flat Pack blending in 3 timelines across incredible time scales in 7 minutes in a way that would give Chris Nolan a run for his money. Also, the idea that the afterlife is more substantial and more enduring than this world is rarely seen in TV and movies. I thought it was an excellent point. I like Flat Pack. So essentially, Chili and Bandit are making like a swing seat to go on the veranda. And whilst they are building that in a kind of classically observational comedy way, the girls start to build their own little adventure story with the extra bits, cardboard and whatever, and start telling the story of evolution. So it raises some interesting questions for Christians and their different interpretations of the timescales and processes of Genesis chapter 1.
I just really enjoyed Flat Pack because it took me right back to being on holiday and being in the swimming pool with my little sister and saying, I'm going to be the mummy starfish, you're going to be the baby starfish, we're going to play. They captured that so brilliantly, like how 2 sisters play. And
the way that Bingo grows up. So she keeps saying, I'm going to be and now I'm like a bit of an older girl and now I'm a bit of a teenager and now we're both grown up. So that's very cool. And I do particularly like the way that, as Hal points out, that final shot when Bandit says this is heaven and they've all been they've ascended up to join their parents on the thing. Yeah, they don't go into the, what is the means by which human beings get to glory. But yeah, there's a beautiful ending to that, which again demonstrates just how brilliant Bluey is. Who else? Sleepy Time got mentioned in the Bluey video, but Yao Ferreira said Sleepy Time is Bluey's greatest episode. Again, non-controversial opinion. A child leaves her bed, travels the stars, returns. That's the shape of the episode, but it's also the shape of Christian belief. Life as exile, return as home, love as the center of all. He goes on to say, Sleepy Time is 6 minutes long, no sermon, no altar, just stars, planets, the beautiful musical crescendo, a mother's voice, and it leaves you hushed like only the best parables do.
I couldn't agree more. Honestly, watching that episode brings me to tears
every time. No, it's brutal. It's the story of growing up. It's the story of growing to independence and the story of basically a little girl moving into sleeping in her own bed. When a show is able to successfully appeal to all the different age groups.
Yeah, because your children, although they're teenagers, or Lily's almost a teenager, they still enjoy Bluey, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely love it. And in fact, it was with my daughter, 12 years old, who I was able to watch these episodes with. Movies, which is quite an interesting one and suggests a kind of meta-modernity. Someone said in the comments.
It was Michael G. I can't figure out whether movies is making fun of the just be yourself trope or embracing it. I get the feeling it wants to have its cake and eat it too. Some sort of meta-modern thing.
Yeah, I think I'd take that. Yeah, I'd take that view. It's a meta-modern way showing you this kind of fairly cliched character coming to be themselves, but also at the same time poking fun at it.
And Lily McCulloch, friend of the show, mentioned the episode Camping. Did you have time to watch Camping?
I've not seen Camping.
I only managed to find a snippet of it, but It was a lovely story about the kind of friendships that you can create when you're on holiday and you meet someone who doesn't speak your language, but you're a child and playing pretend doesn't need you to be able to speak the same language.
Yeah, she goes on to say, such a good example of how children's media is not and should not be nothing more than dumbed down storytelling. When the adults behind the screen put in the time and effort, the result is something a whole family can enjoy.
And then she also says, can we still hope for a full-length Mythopoeia video too? So Lily's still demanding that.
She is, and that will, I doubt, be something the whole family can enjoy. So we'll see what we can do with that.
Now, not in the comments, but I, while editing the Bluey video, discovered Curry Quest, which I then told you to go watch.
You did.
What did you think of Curry Quest, Nate?
Curry Quest is brilliant. So the principle and the great storytelling. It's storytelling about storytelling, because Chili is explaining to Bluey how a quest works, and she goes through the different stages of the hero's journey, the Joseph Campbell storytelling structure thing. And then Bandit and Bingo are enacting that as they go around. Yeah, so that was fantastic. So we're currently working on some material called The Hero's Creed, which is kind of looking at how Christianity in the Apostles' Creed works as the ideal hero's journey, because the monomyth is the gospel of Jesus rather than it's just this sort of accident of human development. The gospel is the story underneath all the other stories. So I loved the way that they wove together both of those things in that episode. Yeah, the other idea that comes through that episode is swapping curries. Like, what is that a regular Australian practice? I don't know. I'd never heard.
Do you want to do a curry swap, or are you scared of a curry swap?
I'm scared that I might be. Again, this is where Bandit is a horrible dad, because he's, so much better than the rest of us. I don't know how to cook a curry.
Maybe you should learn.
I'm not sure any of my friends do either, so yeah, maybe I should learn.
Maybe you and your friends should have a curry party where you all learn how to cook a curry.
Well, in the words of Bandit from the Flat Pack episode,
I'm not taking advice from a cartoon dog.
So we've had a few other videos and comments recently.
Yes, so on Behold the Comments, episode 8, we had one really important question that came up, which was, were the coffee cups intentionally styled on your outfits, or your outfits styled on your coffee cups? From Dom White.
Yours isn't really styled on your outfit today.
I tried.
Yeah, I mean the value.
Blue.
Yeah.
Blue. And then I'm not wearing a hat.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I typically match the cup to the outfit. Because at home we have all of the different coffee cup colour combos, I am occasionally outfitted for my cup by my daughter. Well spotted. And then here was an idea for a video that came through the comments underneath. Hallmark makes an Easter movie reaction, which obviously no one is talking about an Easter bloom, the 2024 Hallmark Easter film.
Which is insane. Everyone should be talking about it.
They ought to be, because I have a deep appreciation for this film and for the 5 rules of floristry. What are they? Come on, see if you can remember them.
Harmony, contrast,
good.
Purpose, balance, love. I think I did get them in the right order, actually.
You smashed it. Absolutely smashed it. Yeah, everyone needs to watch that, because that'll teach you a lot about life.
Or if you don't want to watch the full hour and a half or whatever it was, watch our 40-minute video.
Yeah. Don't watch that one instead. And we reference in that this is one of the worst sermons that's ever been preached, which led to Skyrich Egg, hello, commenting, it would be pretty interesting to see a review of sermons in films, since, they are all pretty bad and shallow. And then listed off just a few films with interesting sermons off the top of his head. Pollyanna, North Avenue Irregulars, Chariots of Fire, Moby Dick, On the Waterfront, A River Runs Through It.
Am I going to be in trouble if I say I haven't seen a single one of those films?
You've not seen Chariots of Fire?
I know the music and I know that scene, but I haven't actually seen the whole film.
Yet again, you have failed the audience by not having watched Chariots of Fire. Yeah, Chariots of Fire, we could do that. Now, we did think about making a video based upon prayers.
Off the back of the Vinland Saga video where we saw people doing the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, so the Vinland Saga one where you've got a family sitting around a table praying, and then I was thinking, I've been talking for a while, for a couple of years at least, about when you see a family around a table, whether it's like a positive depiction of Christianity or it's intentionally trying to undermine it, and the Christian family table as a place of redemption and inclusion and welcome and devotion. But we could do the preaching in movies. Who are your favourite movie preachers or movie prayers, or in TV or cartoons or whatever? We did talk about this in the Hallmark Makes an Easter movie one, was about how it's got both preaching and prayers in, but the prayers are so vacuum. Well, everything about it. The spirituality of that film is deeply upsetting and concerning. We have also released another video, which was
The Biblical Roots of Black Mirror, Common People, which hasn't done well. We're kind of on a bit of a slump in terms of our...
So there is a question, are we just putting out too much different types of content? So if you go from Bluey to Black Mirror, that's a bit of a whiplash kind of scenario. And should we just stay in the lane and just make stuff about Vinland Saga and Twilight of the Gods and Has Been Hotel? And everything needs to be about an animated show which deals with demons and gods and angels and all sorts of stuff. The thing about the channel is about the theology of storytelling. And that can mean any kind of storytelling. So it might include all sorts of TV shows, video games, different genres and all that kind of stuff. But, maybe we do need to
focus.
Stick to what we know. The trouble is we don't know. Thing is, partly because I'm not an obsessive about particular TV shows.
You're an obsessive about the art of storytelling, which applies to all stories as opposed to a avid fan of a particular thing.
Whereas YouTube, I think, likes a fandom.
Well, who knows what YouTube likes? I think the algorithm's a bit of a mystery to us at the moment.
It's all mysterious. Yeah.
So we're going to move straight on to...
What you been watching?
We should have a jingle for that.
We should.
Watchabinwatchin.
So, Eleanor, hatless Eleanor of Lothlorien, what have you been watching?
So, my favourite video game is a horror choice-based game called Until Dawn.
Okay.
And a movie version of that video game came out, and I went to watch it. And I have so many thoughts, Nate. I don't even know where to begin.
Many thoughts. Okay, here's where it would help, because I don't know anything about this choice-based horror video game. So just give me the gist of the game and the world, and then you can give us some of the thoughts.
Okay. So game.
Yeah.
8 teenagers. Snowy mountain. How do you do it without spoiling it?
Have they got to stay alive till dawn?
Yeah. So basically, they need to survive until dawn.
Okay. What's the threat? What's going to stop them?
So initially, the threat is a psycho.
Okay.
But as you go through the game, there's kind of a ha-ha moment where the threat changes.
Okay.
And that's one of the great things about the game, and something they've translated into the film as well, that it plays with several different subgenres within horror.
Okay.
So the movie is completely different characters, completely different setting. There's 5 young adults at this weird house, and there's this hourglass, and the hourglass turns, and they experience new horrors every night. They all die.
Right.
and then it resets to the beginning of the night again.
Okay.
And they get 13 chances. And then on the 13th one, if they all die, then that's it. They become part of this horror.
Wow.
My thoughts in terms of adaptation of game to movie is they're very unrelated. I don't like the suggestion that the game is what the movie is.
Right.
Because there's all these little Easter eggs that kind of reference the game that imply that there's actually a canon to the game where they have ended up at this house and are having to play over the same night and again because you as the player play it again and again, making them go through it.
Yeah.
But that's never a suggestion in the original game. But it had some interesting themes. It's okay to go through bad stuff as long as you're going through it alongside other people. And then there was another theme of it matters more if you only have one chance.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing people like to hold on to from a theological point of view. Life somehow is more precious because it's finite, whereas if you got to live forever, everything becomes less meaningful.
But something I was thinking about, I disagree with that idea in terms of redemption, because I don't think the number of times God forgives us for our sins, the number of times we turn away and he accepts us back, makes his grace any less.
That's a really good way of thinking about it. Yeah.
In fact, I feel like it makes his grace more meaningful that he continues to accept us back.
Yeah. I think one of the things that people who get to the it matters or it's precious because it's finite and you only get to do it once. Well, I think it's two things going on. One is you start to say that when you do believe we've come from nothing, we're going to nothing. So you're trying to kind of retroactively make life have meaning when you've got nothing to tie it to. But the other thing is that we're really conscious of living in an age of mass consumption and everything being readily available. And of things just being kind of repeatedly done to death, right? So the whole thing about franchise storytelling, just like keep, cranking the thing and churn out another movie of the same kind of thing. So there's something we recognize there that that feels less meaningful to have these kind of repeated sort of things.
Anyway, I just talked a lot about Until Dawn. Nate, what you been watching?
So I've been watching a show called Yellowstone, which is basically Kevin Costner as the patriarch of this ranch in Montana and his horrible children who are horrible to each other, and they dominate the town. The reason why I wanted to watch it was because I like westerns, but also I like just looking at people wearing cowboy hats on horses going through beautiful landscapes, and the coats are really good. There was one coat in episode 1 I was like, that is an amazing coat, I want that coat. And then I started to think, oh no, this is like just the step above for Hallmark movies, where basically there's a massive industry of trying to get particular production design things or costume items into the show because then everyone will want that item of clothing. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. You could argue that it looks a bit like a Ralph Lauren or a Carhartt advert. It's just constantly these kind of... The clothing is really well thought through and it looks kind of very pretty. And I was on a plane and I was watching whatever I could get my hands on. So I started watching it and thought, oh, I can kind of keep going with this. And then as we've gone into, I think I'm on the 3rd season now. And I just forgot how many TV shows have a really good idea. And then because they've got a massive cast of characters and they want to develop them all and they want to keep the whole thing going, they just keep introducing way more stuff than you need to. So you're like, hold on, where did that go? I thought that was the most important thing, and now we don't care about that at all. And that person hasn't been seen for 3 episodes, and that somehow is okay, even though they were the most important thing in the world. And it's still beautiful to watch, right? Kevin Costner riding a horse through Montana is still stunning. And the coats are still great, but I'm like... I'm finding myself skipping through stuff. Do I just want a screensaver of someone riding a horse? I don't know. But
that's my problem with TV shows in general. I really like a limited series. I love the BBC Pride and Prejudice series because it's based on a book, so it has a start, a middle, and an end.
Yeah. It's based on a book, so someone
Yeah.
got their story straight
Yeah.
before you started to try
Yeah,
and do it.
I hate things that when someone starts it, they don't have an idea of an end, and it just goes on and on and on, and just gets ridiculous and messy.
And that's what made like Adolescence was so like appealing for people, because you just went, here are 4 episodes and that's done. But also it's what makes me think Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, it elevates them above so much other stuff.
Yeah.
Where you think you have got this complex narrative arc that's going to unfold itself through a number of seasons, but there's genuine coherence. One thing I will say the show does quite well, though, is that they've got this group of guys who work on the ranch, who live in a big bunkhouse together, and they're all kind of cowboys, and they drink and play cards when they're not lassoing horses and stuff. And there's a few points where they'll just create a subplot where those guys do something. And it's visual, because the trouble is with all of the higher level, okay, here's the deep and meaningful conversation between the characters, the script just can't sustain that. And you can do it for 3 or 4 episodes where you've got people like looking out into the distance and saying stuff about, I'm never going to make it off this ranch, am I? And then someone else is like, only man who ever could was a postman or something, whatever. Like just some like stupid line where it's supposed to be desperately full of meaning. After a while, I'm like so sick of how important all this stuff is. It reminded me that I actually like action on the screen.
Show don't tell.
Show don't tell, and it's called cinema for a reason, right? It's supposed to be moving.
Well, I think that's about it.
Are we there? Are we done? I think we might be. If you've got any thoughts or comments, please do let us know, and they might even appear in the next episode of Behold the Comments. But for now, all that remains for us to do is to tell you that, contrary to the words of Pete Thorne, please do remember that media consumption is optional. You are under no obligation to mention any of the things that came up in this episode of Behold the Comments. I'm Reformed Mythologist Nate Morganlock. She's Eleanor of Lothlorien without a hat. We're glad you were here.